Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick one on the CVJ Night Elf, which is this guy. This is also their modular cable, their upgrade cable. This one is actually called the Flora, so we'll talk about that in a second. But for those of you who saw the original Night Elf, this is, I don't know what they actually called it, if this was a revision of it or the black version, but this is the one that doesn't have the character on the faceplate. So came out a little bit after the original. They kind of put the original on pause and said, we're going to do this and make a new faceplate for it. So this is what the new one looks like. And, you know, I think it's fine. I think the all black shell is actually pretty nice. It's actually a little bigger than I thought it was going to be. I thought CVJ sets tended to be a little bit smaller. This one actually has some size to it. And I think you also do get a different cable with the black version versus the original one. I thought had an SPC cable, and this is actually a very attractive black sleeve cable. This is modular, but you only get to 3.5. But you know, it's a QDC. It is a two core sleeve cable. It's actually quite nice. After holding this one, I would probably say I would always take the sleeve cable over the original SPC cable. But this is the Flora cable, which is the one that I actually used. So this one is an upgrade cable. So it is a 4-core. It is a little bit beefier. It is a little bit nicer looking. This is the 2-pin version. So while this stock cable comes with the QDC, which looks like kind of that, where the connector actually goes inside, it's kind of half sleeved. This is more of the traditional 2-pin. So you get the kind of the pins without the sleeve. So 4 cores, modular. The difference between, you know, why you would consider picking up the Flora, one, you get this super cool case, which is super nice. And I know that these cases exist for other brands. This is the first time I've actually held this one. It is super solid. It's actually really nice. I was kind of surprised how nice it is. And it has the rubber bottom, the kind of rubber insert on the bottom. So the whole thing feels very, very solid. It's got a nice weight to it. But at the same time, so you get the case, which is probably $5-ish. You also get the 4.4 and a 3.5 on this cable, whereas this one you're only going to get the 3.5, or I'm not sure if they offer both of them, but I saw that. I think the original one only came in 3.5. It is a modular cable, but they didn't include both connections, whereas you get both of them here. So this one I think is about $20, so I would say it's $5 for the case. It's $5 for the extra connector. The rest of it is you're getting a cable for, you know, $10-ish, which is actually pretty reasonable for a modular cable. So, you know, I used the Flora because they sent it and it was nice looking, and I think the purple actually goes quite well with the black. Like, this combination is actually pretty nice. This all black shell with a purple cable is actually a pretty nice combo, so I don't have any problems with that. This is the image that was on, I think, the shell of the original version, so I don't have that one, but I think if you're into cartoons, you get that on the box. So let's kind of jump into Night Elf and we'll talk about it. So what is it? It's actually a cool dynamic driver configuration. It is a 6+10. Those two are paired together, and then those two are paired together with an 8mm. So 3 dynamic drivers. The 6 and 10 are kind of paired together for the base, and then the 8 does everything else, and the 8 happens to be DLC. And they came out at about $30, so, you know, really a nice price point to hear a really, really fun set that actually is kind of attractive as I hold it in my hand. So what does it sound like? I would call it into club tuning. Pretty much a really big bass thump here, forward vocals here, perfect for dance music, higher volume sessions. It's really tuned for bass-led genres. This is a really nice bass shelf, and then they push this a little bit forward. So you got the boom out of this. You get very clear vocals from that little boost, and this is actually cut, so you can turn this one up quite high, and there's no treble fatigue or sibilance or any other things. It's really tuned for fun is exactly what I would call it. So the bass on this one, and I wrote boom there, but boom isn't actually accurate because they actually tuned the boom out. They vented this one quite a bit, so there isn't really any boom there, but there is a really heavy thump to it. So while the boom is tilted down, it's more of a nice combo of very thumping sub bass and mid bass. There's no tuck here. This goes straight into the mids, and that's not really a problem because they brought the mids forward, and that's how this set is going to sound exactly. It's big boom here. Then the vocals are kind of popped right and forward, so those are kind of right in front of you and very clear. The mids, instead of doing the recessed mids as you would get from this traditional bass curve that ran right into the mids, that could have happened. They could have been very recessed. They rise a little bit early. They rise a bit high, and the height that they rise, kind of right there at the Harman target, that is pretty much a V-shaped signature, with the clarity point right there in the vocals. This is the focus of that driver. That is the clarity point on that one. It's done very, very well, right? Heavy bass thump, clear vocals. It's a really nice combination for listening to that style of music. If you're into classical music or vocal-led things, it's not really that style. It's for tracks or genres that really hit hard here, and you need a very clear vocal and don't have a ton of things out there. An extension, it is certainly present there in a treble, but just not brought forward as it should in this particular tuning. So I think part of the deception here is the bass rising with volume. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked at all, right? So if you just look at the signature and you think about how this one would volume scale, it can go 50-50. You kind of look at it and say, well, this is going to rise faster and it's going to get super shouty very quickly. This will rise faster than the bass, and the two will never actually catch up. But it's actually the opposite. The bass rises, and it's probably the crossover that they used and the driver pairing that they did, but it actually works out very well. As you turn up the volume, this actually rises quite fast. This rises kind of not as fast, and this doesn't really rise at all because it's a lower level. Exactly what you want on a very fun dance music, high volume session. You want this to fill in, be bassy, thump hard, rise fast, a lot of bass as you turn it up. This kind of rises accordingly, so the vocals are always clear, but it never really rises above this too far, where that becomes too shouty or too forward. It's exactly the way you would tune it for this style of music and this style of signature. Classic, fun, turn it up V style is exactly what I would say. So the treble is actually the other deception of when you're looking at this graph. If you ignore these peaks at 8 and 10 as you should, this treble is actually cut over this way. So it kind of rises right here, right in the vocals. You get those clear vocals, and then the rest of it is tucked right under the vocals. And that is a very, very nice way to do it. This could have possibly gone horribly wrong if that treble wasn't lowered, and it would really smash right into the mids, exactly like a recent set did. And I talked about that kind of at length of what happens when you don't lower this enough, and this kind of ends a little bit right into the mids. This smashes right into your mids, and instead of getting clear vocals that are separated from the treble and the bass, you end up with everything smashed on top of each other. So they got this one perfectly right. It's exactly how it should have been. Linear treble is fine, but the level can't be too high, as I just said. You want that clarity right at the vocals, and so tilt the rest of it down is exactly what they did here. So on this one, you're getting DD treble set at a very proper, fun level. This was a very, very, very smart move. Looks like a really small move, but when you hear the bass level, that thumping hard, the clear vocals, and this has to be tucked right under the vocals so everything sounds nice and you can turn this up as loud as you can go. It all makes perfect sense when you hear this in your ear. So the stage, and again, like that other set I talked about, the staging is going to take a hit on this one because it's going to sound very wide. You actually do get some upper treble, and that creates a bunch of width, but this is forward, so everything is kind of flat. You don't get enough depth from the mid bass, even though that's a high level of mid bass. This sort of takes over on staging, and the balance is just in that way where you're not going to quite get the depth. So this is really forward, kind of flat. This is kind of okay, and this will give you the width. So that's essentially what the stage looks like on this one. So wide, but not high or any depth. And I would say the Night Elf, this perfect track for this one, the track by Britney Spears, Till the World Ends. And if you listen to that track, it has a really thumping bottom end. It exactly fits perfectly with this bass curve. Her vocals, super sharp, super clear, have to be over the bass, have to be separated. She is the focus of that track, so put them forward exactly the way this tuning does it. And there's a lot of upper treble, high frequency stuff going on in that track, so push it down so it doesn't interfere with her vocals, doesn't interfere with the amount of bass that you get through. That whole track just aligns perfectly to this graph, and it's just one of those sets where it'll do other things, but that track is kind of perfectly fit to this exact tuning. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.